If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to jump back to the previous episode to listen to the first half of this conversation. Come back here for part 2.
Welcome to the Building Doctor Show with Jens Johansson.
All right, we're getting into the Q&A here. So the first few Q&As are coming from people who have sent them ahead of the show. And then for everybody who has questions during the show, please enter them into the Q&A and we'll get to those. So what is the most common signs of earthquake damage that building owners should look for immediately after a quake? We covered a lot of those. Interior cracks, exterior cracks. And so the exterior cracks, we mean kind of big, kind of dramatic, coming from window squares or door squares. You can see the diagonal cracks coming off of those. And then they also exhibit themselves in a stair-step fashion because the building has moved or shifted. And so instead of cracking perfectly, that follows the stair step of the bricks or the CMU. And so stair step cracks are a big giveaway. Roof inspections, we want to make sure nothing was torn at the roof membrane. Glass inspections, is there shoring necessary, things like that. And then turn off your gas just for safe measure. Gas can leak and build up and cause problems even with other appliances when the pilot light turns on, or you can watch lots of movies where the building blows up. But you want to shut the gas down and just give it a minute and inspect it. Okay, after a seismic event, what steps should we take to quickly assess and document any damage to the building's envelope, especially for older or high-rise properties? So it's using your phone, getting out there, taking lots of pictures, being on the spot. But a visual inspection by us creates a baseline. It'll also help you identify maintenance needs. It'll also, say this is a new crack versus an old crack. Why is there a new crack? And then you can talk to your insurance company from that. And what do I mean by new and old? The old cracks are full of dirt. They've got moss in them, whatever. The new cracks are obviously cleanly broken. You can see they're clean, they're new. Maybe there's a little bit of dust of the surrounding product around, but you can definitely tell a new one from an old one. And so get that baseline created. Okay, for an HOA with a mix of building types, wood, concrete, steel, what specific earthquake risks should we be most concerned about, and how can we address them in our maintenance plan? So the masonry type stuff, again, brick, masonry fireplaces, chimney. Because chimneys are tall and skinny and they tip over. Any areas with stone, brick, stucco, tile, you'll see some accent areas, typically in the street front side or maybe, around certain areas. So definitely look at those stone areas. Are the deck posts and any other foundation posts still on their bases? Kind of take a look at that. It's a stair system and it should be bolted to the concrete. If it's not, it's going to be moving around maybe. And then wood is likely going to perform better, wood and steel, than your concrete. And so they're just going to be flexible. And think about a whole building flexing. It's not my little board, but there is some ability to move. Okay. What is the safest type of building for an earthquake? We talked about, the taller is actually, it's better because it's not so stiff and short. You've got some flexibility. It's actually designed for higher earthquake load. Skyscrapers are than homes, but shorter buildings tend to have to withstand greater forces because they don't have that flexibility. They don't get to move. But the safest type of building, three-story wood frame or extra tall skyscraper, steel. What we don't like are the 3 to 5 story brick ones in the historic areas, and started with that picture of just the bricks falling into the street and really causing lots of problems. But think historic areas, think old parts of town, think brick, and it's like okay, we got to pay attention to this more. So pay attention. But wood frame, steel frame are very safe. Okay, unrelated to earthquakes. What are some alternative methods for building your reserve funds and the relative pros and cons? So this one I had to think about it a little bit. I don't have any reserve funds are savings. So there's not a lot of hack about how can I find more money, and I don't have a lot of tricks to it, but I do have a couple of suggestions that we've seen some boards do. And that's building up your reserve funds from leftover funds. And here's what I mean. So the project was budgeted to cost $2 million. We came in under budget and we only spent 1.7. So that $300,000, what should we do with it? Should we send checks back out to all the residents, or should we put it into reserves because we had planned to spend that $2 million? We got approval to spend it. We came in a little less. We're going to put that approved spending into savings. Now, you might need to check your bylaws and talk to your HOA attorney, but to save that money that for the reserve fund for future repairs. So we had a vote for repairs. We didn't spend it all. We'll put it back in for repairs. So that's one way. Other areas of finding money, we've got a guide to help you find money. Things like warranties, rebates, insurance claims, things like that to help you build up your funding. Not a lot of cons to having a good reserve fund, but the pros are, you have money when you need it, and you look better from a bank's perspective when you're applying for a loan. If you need a loan for the next project, if you have a reasonable amount of cash on hand or funds in your bank account that demonstrates that you have money, you've saved for it, you just need this loan for a temporary cover, as opposed to not having anything and not taking good care of your financial position. So I don't see a lot of cons to having a reasonably funded reserve account. Obviously, having a super wealthy 150% funded reserve account is you're spending more money than you need saving. So take that with what I'm saying. Have reasonable reserve funds to address the repairs you're trying to address. But saving any unused contingencies is a good way we've seen boards do that. Okay, let me jump over to this show's Q&A. If I can find the button, more Q&A. There we go. Okay. This next question, can homeowners help me identify structural defects and weaknesses in a building? Absolutely. Can home inspectors help me identify defects? Yes, you bet. They should be going underneath your house in the crawl space. They should be checking we're connecting the boxes to the foundation, right? They should be checking for anchor bolts. They should be checking for proper brackets on the beam to post connections, on the post to footing connections. They should be looking at your deck posts. Are those attached to the footing? Do they have a bracket on them? Do we have brackets and hardware on all these places we're supposed to have it? Can we see ledger bolts on our deck to wall and make sure the deck is securely bolted to the ledger? They can definitely point out visual cracking again, or that stair step cracking, or large cracks, wider than 1/8 of an inch, and saying there's some big cracks back here. What's going on? And so home inspectors can do that. In a multifamily or in a condominium community, especially with lots of buildings, the home inspector is looking at unit 301, which is in building A. They are not looking at all the rest of the buildings. And so that's where an association inspection from somebody like us would help you. Okay, I see problems at buildings 1, 5, and 7, but I don't see problems on the rest of the buildings. And so that's one of the drawbacks of home inspectors. And in condo environments, they're saying, well, I'm only looking at the inside of the unit. So I'm only looking at paint and drywall in. I'm not looking at the master building because that's covered by the association as a common element. And so they don't really look at the roof. They don't look at these other places. So talk to your home inspector, see if they'll do a walk around, see if they'll look for these other things. But yeah, home inspectors can help identify that stuff all the time. Okay. Last question. And if you got more, get them in there. I can finish them. So last question, do the various types of plumbing pipe, well, let me just start over. Does the various types of plumbing pipe types hold up with our typical Northwest earthquakes? Do the various components, so meaning PEX, copper, cast iron, do they hold up with our earthquakes? Yes. So copper is welded together, and copper has flexibility. It's actually pretty flexible. Cast iron is more rigid, and if it's rusty, it'll start breaking. PEX is great. It's like rope. You can bend it and move it all over the place. So that it'll really move with an earthquake. The yellow gold bond defective stuff from the 90s, that gets real brittle. So any movement and shaking might crack that plumbing and break it. And if the earthquake hasn't caused it, it'll have its own problems and soon need to be replaced anyway. But that's the CPVC. It gets yellow and gets brittle. Is PEX piping allowed in all buildings? I believe so. I'm not sure about super commercial, but in residential or multifamily residential, PEX piping is allowed. One of the tricks there is there's 3 types of PEX connectors. There's the push on that rely on little clips. There's the heat stretch that stretches it. You put it around the opening and it shrinks back around it. And then there's the clamp. You put a clamp on it and clamp it down. And so depending on those various types, the PEX system holds up real well. So those are those 2 questions. Do my plumbing pipes break? No. And home inspectors can help you with that. And is there anything else? No. Okay. Let's go out of there. And we did our Q&A, so let's do our little drawing. Here we go. It looks like we've got a lunchbox cooler. We've got some chocolate bars. We've got some stickers. We've got some cups. So I am going to choose a number here. Let me see. I'm thinking number 5. Number 5 gets this. So 5, we know how you signed in for the webinar, and Carolyn will reach out to you, get your address, and send this out to you. So thank you for playing. And did you know we have additional training for boards and managers? So again, if you don't like to type, take out your phone, scan the QR code. Otherwise, type learn.j2consultants.com/resources. And free is on YouTube and our website. And paid training opportunities, call us and let's see what you need, and we can give you some very specific guidance. Really useful for new boards or boards that need to get into alignment, or new board members that want just a little bit extra personalized help, and even new managers. So you can stream this wherever you go. We're on all the streaming platforms, and be sure to do us a big favor. And be sure to rate us 5 stars wherever you hear us, wherever you're listening to us. It's our fuel to create more free content for you. So if you found this useful, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like, give it a good review, and that'll help share our message. We appreciate you. All right, thanks for tuning in. Next month is Women's Empowerment Month, and we're going to have the strong women of J2 taking over the show, and also bringing on some strong women guests from the management industry and the construction industry. So it's going to be a really cool show. Stay tuned for that next month. All right. Thank you very much for watching. See ya.
This podcast is part of J2's free live webinar, The Building Doctor Show. To attend the live show and ask your questions during the Q&A, visit www.j2consultants.com.